Kulas, who's the nun of the Cairns and Hinterland HHS Nurse Navigator Service. Helen began as a nurse navigator in the Cassowary Hub, and for those of you who know the Cairns area, the Cassowary Hub is down in Innisfail, so it's quite a challenging environment. And I don't want to steal any of the thunder of your presentation, but it's quite a low socio-economic environment. And I think that it presents some very unique challenges as well as being in a rural area. She's also the current chair of the statewide Nurse Navigator Network, and one of the key leaders of the Nurse Navigator service in Queensland. She's got a clinical background as a clinical nurse specialist in intensive care and ED, and she's held management and education positions in both of those areas. So I'd like you to warmly welcome Helen.
To those of you who know the noise, that's my fellow navigators in the room. I actually paid them not to make noise, so refunding the break. Thanks, guys. So it's a real privilege and a pleasure to come and talk to you about navigation today, particularly because it's been bandied about in the last 12 months, but there's really not a great deal of really good understanding about what navigators do and what we set out to achieve, and some of the journey that we've travelled in the last 12 months. So it's really, really exciting to be able to come and share some of that with you. So I'm not going to throw too many stats at you because you've heard a lot of stats just in the last couple of hours about the incidence of chronic illness within Queensland and indeed throughout the country. So that's the reason why Nurse Navigators are here, to try and effect some solutions to some of the problems that the chronically ill people face. So we're funded for 400 positions. I think we're about 213. Does that sound about right, Chris? At present, across the state, so each HHS now proudly has at least one, if not more, navigators sitting within it. And we're really about the most vulnerable cohort of patients in Queensland, and we really represent a new and innovative way to look after those patients and come up with solutions for them. So it's people with 2 or more chronic illnesses expected to last more than 6 months, with lots of other factors affecting their patient journey, meaning they can't travel it on their own. They don't get to their appointments. They come to ED all the time for reasons that could be dealt with elsewhere. They stay in hospital for a long time, and it's very difficult to get them out and keep them out. So we're about looking after those patients and coming up with solutions for them to improve their quality of life, and also to improve and contribute to some of the organisational goals that Queensland Health has. Because the better we do for our patients, the better we do for our organisation, the more we can give back to our patients. So that's what it's all about, really. And very much it's patient-centred. It's about what our patients need, because they don't fit into any box in the system. They have got so much wrong with them, and so many other complexities in their life. They don't fit anywhere. No one knows quite what to do with it. You know that patient that, you know, will come into ED all the time, or be on your ward, and you go, oh, they're back. Those types of patients, you know, those ones that you think, if only somebody could drive this bus in the right direction, we could get somewhere with them. Those are the types of patients we're looking to help. So throughout the last 12 months, there's been, you know, a fairly solid core of navigators across the state have come together on some working groups to come up with a model of care for navigation that derived from some of the founding principles that were created by OCNO, the role principles, care coordination, creating partnerships, improving patient outcomes, and facilitating system improvement. So we just really took that and the referral criteria and ran with it. So there's a good portion of that core group today. I'm very proud to call my colleagues, and they've worked extremely hard over the last 12 months for us to come up with this stuff. We have been blessed with some statewide documentation we can use that helps us record our activities, navigators, and what we've done with our patients. It can actually be used as tools across the healthcare continuum, particularly our integrated healthcare summary. That's a really extensive summary of everybody that's involved with that particular patient, and they can take it with them everywhere and show everybody. Their GP, sometimes we've got kids who take it to school and show their class teachers. We've got people who come to the ED with it, so no one's putting all the pieces of the puzzle together all the time. And our patients travel along that patient care continuum, which is a bit hard for you to see there, but it's basically 5 phases of navigation. So when someone comes to us, they're usually in a pretty intense phase. Things have been going wrong for quite a while. They've fallen through a number of cracks. They've failed to attend a lot of appointments. had one lady down in the Castleberry Hub who had 26 years' worth of back-to-back admissions to different hospitals within far north Queensland with a maximum break of about 7 days between each admission. 26 years' worth of this stuff. So she was a big bucket of problems to sort out. And we got it sorted eventually, but you can imagine that phase of working out what's going on is intense. And that's where we came up with the analogy of, if you think of the nurse navigator as a puzzle master, when we get given a referral, it's like getting, you know, you go to grandma's house and there's an old jigsaw puzzle that, you know, maybe your parents played with or whatever, and it's on the bottom floor and it's looking a bit tattered, and you pick it up and pieces are all muddled together. Maybe there's a couple of pieces that have managed to stay together, you know, but they're all muddled and there might be pieces missing and the box is a bit broken. It all looks a bit ugly. That's like what we get. Except if you think of the patient as a box and the pieces inside is everybody who's been involved with that patient. So one piece is their carer, if they're lucky enough to have one, or their family. It might be a social worker that worked with them 20 years ago that knows a lot about them. Their GP is a piece. Every member of the allied health team holds a piece of that puzzle. Every nurse who's looked after that patient would have got one snippet of information about their life as a piece of the puzzle. Every doctor, everybody who's come into contact with them in their healthcare journey is in that box. And it's up to you as a navigator to work out where on earth those pieces fit. And when you start putting the puzzle together, you realise there's pieces missing. We have to work out where they are and who can best fit into them at what time is really important too. You often have a social worker saying to you, you know, we should be moving, this is our call, this is what we know, but the patient's not ready. They've been through such a traumatising time through the healthcare system, they're not ready to trust yet. We have to bring them to that phase, and we will, and we'll put your piece of puzzle into place when we can, but it has to be at the right time, otherwise it just falls back down again. So that's probably the best idea I can give you of what a navigator does, is putting that piece of the puzzle together. And then, if we don't teach the patient how to keep it together and make sure they've got the supports in place around them to keep it together, it's going to fall apart when we walk away. Navigation doesn't go on forever. As you can see, we've got a patient care continuum. If we kept those couple of chronic complex patients forever, we would never be able to help the amount of people that require help. So we have to travel them through a continuum. We have to start finding solutions. Then we have to start teaching them to get that puzzle together. And sometimes the support we put in place is we might need to make an application to the guardianship board for guardianship. We might need to get their carers some more support. We might need to get them into respite. We might need to go to their GP with them a couple of times to organise what their ongoing care plan is going to be. We might hand them over to a service like Coach or Health for Life or our local community health service who does care coordination. We might need to do those things to put those supports in place because these people are vulnerable. They're very often socio-economically deprived. They very often have mental health issues as a comorbidity. They're very often Indigenous. Up in Cairns and hinterland, our rate for Indigenous navigated patients is at about 10%. So we need to support those people in a different way. So founding HHSs have started collecting data on what we do, and Ray talked to you a little bit about that before. Some of the interesting things we have found is initially when we all thought about navigation, we thought navigation had a good idea and it's going to stop people coming to the ED, and it certainly does do those things. But it also gets people the help that they haven't had for years. They might get into that surgery they didn't have the 6 years prior to because they didn't stop drinking and they couldn't have their gastroscope and their diabetes wasn't well managed and whatever it is. We might be getting them the care that they've needed for years. We might be able to advocate for an Indigenous family to come down from the Cape into Cairns to have some care that's been going on for years. So although we're saving money, we're also costing money. So Ray was alluding to that before, is that we now have to come up with ways of how do we collect this data? How do we prove that opportunity cost? How do I prove that my aged care navigator going out to someone's home to do a home visit and putting some plans in place and getting them an appointment with a GP stop them from coming to ED? How do I prove that? How do I measure that? So that's one of our big challenges moving forward. Another challenge we've got is aligning what we do with what already exists within Queensland Health, because there are a lot of people out there that think that we do care coordination, and indeed we do, and they might be doing that too, and where do we fit into that puzzle? And the one thing I'll say to you is the big bonus of these roles is their ability to affect system-wide improvements, and that really is our very strong point of difference as nurse navigators. We are employed at the grade 7 level at least. There are some grade 8 nurse practitioners, as Chris alluded to before. So at the grade 7 level, expected that we know the healthcare system, that we know how things work, and that we have clinical knowledge that we can say, actually, no, that patient shouldn't go home today because the X, Y, and Z will happen if we don't put plans into place. Or yes, this patient is incredibly unwell and I know that they've come to ED in the past and they shouldn't have, but today they do need to come. So we've got the clinical knowledge to be able to articulate that to the people who need to hear that information. And the other thing is, it's really important to know the system you're working with, because as much as we navigate the patient, we navigate them through the politics of our organisation and others that they receive healthcare from. And that can often be the most tricky part of being a navigator, is those door slams, what we call door slams. So, you know, you think a service might help a patient, no, we've had them before, we don't want to know. Or, no, we'll do this, but we won't do that. One of the things, the great things about nurse navigators, they don't like to take no for an answer. We love to find different ways to do things. We love to be able to talk to people to come to different agreements and arrangements about how we can look after a patient. And we love to use our patient stories to say, but we tried this with this person, it was fabulous, it really worked, can we give it a try again? Or those sorts of things. So we love to think outside the box, we love to come up with solutions. And another analogy we've used before about navigation is, you might have seen around, is the glass half full, is the glass empty? The point is the glass is refilled, there's a solution, we just need to find it, we need to articulate it, and we need to make sure that travels with the patient so that they achieve a good outcome in the end. The funny thing about our job title is I had an elderly gentleman say to me down in the Castlereagh Hub when I first started, said to me, navigator. I like the sound of that, sounds like you know where you're going. I thought, you've got that. As Chris alluded to, yes, I was a critical care clinician. I don't know if any of you have seen that show on TV, RPA. It was on, so I was in RPA managing their ICU in a big city, and we decided on a sea change, so we came up to Cairns and drove down to Innisfail, and I said, you know, this guy said, you know where you're going? I'm thinking, yeah, right. Gave me his address, and I said, all right, I'll come out to your house, because he had some issues, and we thought there was something going on at home with his medication that no one could work out. So he gave me the address, and I plugged it into the GPS, praying that I wouldn't lose the signal in the middle of this place called Mirrawinny, which is kind of a little bit between Innisfail and Cairns, and there's nothing but cane fields there. And it said, you know, turn left here, so I made the turn, and it said, you have arrived. And I thought, you're a liar. There's cane fields here, there, and everywhere. I remember he said to me, there's a narrow path, look for the narrow path. And I looked in between the two cane fields, there was this narrow path. I thought, he's going to be kidding me. My son had come home from school because it was a foreign environment to them. This story about how snakes love to live in the cane fields. I'm telling you, I carved a trench up there. So yeah, it might sound like we know what we're doing, and we for the most part do, but sometimes we're navigating new territory too, which is why we rely on the support of our colleagues within the Nurse Navigator Network to bolster each other, to give each other ideas, and to grow and develop the model so we can provide this care to the vulnerable people of Queensland. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. And I always feel inspired when I hear Helen speak, and I'm lucky enough to hear her speak every fortnight, actually, with the Nurse Navigator Network. But this role is really exciting, and I think it speaks to the true innovation that nursing can do. It is about being a trailblazer, and I'm really excited to be part of it, going on the journey with you and with the other guys that we've got. So, and thanks for your contribution in leading the Nurse Navigator Network. You're achieving amazing things. Has anyone got any questions?
That was a really interesting talk. We are wanting to work with you heaps more, so it was great to have that. I suppose I've got two things. First of all, is this founded on some sort of international model? Like how, I know it was an election commitment, but was there an international model that this is based on?
I guess there are a lot of international models regarding navigation around about the place. A lot of them do what some people refer to as internal navigation, so they might get someone with a cancer diagnosis and explain to them what next and all that sort of thing. What Queensland Health seeks to do is so much wider and so much more innovative, in that we've got this whole big model of care with 4 role principles, and that we really want to come up with system improvements for our patients. So while we're finding individual solutions for patients, we're also thinking, you know what, I've seen that before. I think we could do this better. Things like, you know, down in Innisfail, Chris is mentioning, there's only one major aged care facility down there. So people sitting in Innisfail Hospital forever waiting for nursing home beds. And, you know, it's not the best outcome for anyone. So we came up tried to look into what some of the issues were. Some of it was a lack of understanding of families about what their role was in getting people off to aged care and the support they could receive. And so we did a co-education thing with the aged care facility where we decided they would tell them this and we would tell them that, and we would back each other and we would support the person through the process. And our long stay rates really dropped dramatically when we first started that. So it's about creating a system improvement. When we come across individual things, recognising it, creating an improvement and measuring the data to prove value.
Thanks, Helen. And what about caseload? How's that managed and balanced and even?
Oh, how topical that question. So this is something that we've actually just surveyed the navigators statewide about, because there was never really any mandated or dictated caseload. And as you can imagine, one complex patient might take this amount of time, one complex patient might take forever. I had a young kiddo down at Innisfail, and if something fell apart for him, he had one of 5 people in the entire country with this rare leaf disorder, and he was deemed to be one of the most complex child safety cases in Queensland. Something went wrong with this kid. As a navigator of this child, it was all week, and I'm not kidding, all week we would take him. There are other patients that don't get quite so much time, so we're working on really bit of a matrix to determine, levels of complexity. We're looking at putting workloads into trend care, so we're doing all this sort of stuff on the run to determine what's reasonable for a navigator. But at the moment, what we're using as a guidance is, all those tools that we've got. If we're getting to the point where we're saying we can't get this stuff done, we have to look at whether or not we've got a manageable caseload.
Other questions?
Hi, my name's Marion from Nambour, and how are you determining for these next 287 that are going to appear over the next few years? Where are they going? How do you determine where they're going to be placed in the state?
So I guess that's an individual HHS decision. OPNA has been very gracious in allowing the HHSs to determine their own needs in terms of what they need navigator support for. We're also very fortunate that in the beginning of this year we've had something come out that's called SCANNER, another acronym. That's another difference with Queensland Health. We love acronyms. I've never seen anything like it. So SCANNER talks about a patient predictive model. So it will give you, literally the data custodian of SCANNER for navigation will get a big list of people who will most likely benefit from navigation in the next 12 months. So it goes on, their comorbidities, their presentations to ED, their length of stay. There's a lot of factors that go into it that spit out this list. So what a lot of this in our HHSs have done is look to these lists to look to see where are we covering our patients and where are our gaps to plan our future progression for our services.
Just to add to that, we certainly developed a data model to allocate nurse navigators throughout the state. So all 400 have been allocated. I think the most common question I get asked, and I get asked this every week, is where can I get a nurse navigator? But it was a very complex modelling process and involved a lot of negotiations. We had to get 16 different chief executives and 16 different executive directors of nursing to agree, and that was quite a challenge. Any other questions?